So hello guys, welcome to Subhra the Geek. Welcome to day 4 of our Python tutorial series where we learn Python fast and professionally. So guys, I had promised to you that I will teach enough basic Python to you guys so that you can do coding in Python like a professional Python programmer in 7 days. So without further ado, let's move on to VS Code where I have written the code as usual and I will explain each and every nook and cranny so that I don't waste time and you get to understand the code easily. I am your host Subhra. Let's start, shall we? So guys, now we are in VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Again, I made it correct. See. So today we'll be discussing about class and objects, which is one of the main pillars on which Python or any object-oriented programming language stands. So guys, I want to tell you that thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for sharing it with your friends. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe to my channel. Please hit the bell icon beside the subscribe button so that you get notified each and every time I post a new video. I post thrice a week on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays about this Python series. And for talks, I am doing only on Sundays. I will be posting a talk on this Sunday. And that's all guys, and I have very big announcements in the near future, so please give a like, please share it, please subscribe to my channel. So the announcement which I have is gonna change everything, and I don't see any channels on YouTube doing the same, so I'll be doing so. The code is written for today's class and I have two classes over here, two files over here exactly. So those two files are the code and I'll be uploading each and everything in the GitHub. So you can find each and everything in the GitHub link down below. While you are down below, go and subscribe to my Instagram handle, to my Facebook handle or to my Twitter handle and get connected with me so that I can solve each and every problem which you face during coding. And if you have any query, please do comment, and if you want personal intervention of mine, then you can directly talk to me in the social media accounts. The handles link are given below. And also you can comment over here. I generally comment on each and everything which I see. So thank you guys, let's start. So guys, in today's class we are going to be talking about classes, objects, attributes, behaviors, self variable, constructor, class. Why class is known as a user defined data type, variable meaning class variable, instance variable, etc. And then methods. What are the different types of methods? Namely instance methods, class methods, static methods. There are 3 types of methods. And then I will be discussing 2 advanced properties of class. Those 2 advanced properties are: number 1 is passing members of one class to another class, and number 2 is nested class. Guys, this is one of the very advanced concepts in Python and you do not generally require, but you require some part of passing members of one class to another class in inheritance, but we don't require it completely. Nested class we don't need, but I will tell you, and I have given an example over here of nested class only. So in this video, in this file, you will find all the things which I have talked about except the nested class. Nested class is given in another class, another file. So let's start. So what is a class? A class is a blueprint. You can think of a class as a blueprint for an object. So what is a blueprint? Say for example you wanted to build a home. So what you do, you make a plan on how to build and how to utilize the maximum space which you have, and that is called a blueprint. So you chalk out a plan, and that is called a blueprint of the house, and based on that you make the house. Similarly, say for example when we manufacture cars, when cars are manufactured, at that time also what happens, each and everything is first designed inside some software or it is drawn, and after that is made into a real object. So first the drawing, there may be many drafts, and the drawing does not take much space. It takes the space of a paper only. On the paper you just draw a thing. But when the real product happens, that at that time you generally give a space. So if I don't want to draw also, I don't require any, I can have a plan and I don't require any memory space. So class doesn't require any memory space. A class, when instantiated, what is instantiated? Okay, when an object is made from the class. So what is an object? An object is anything which you can physically feel. So say for example, this pen is an object. So when this pen was designed, this never took any memory spaces. But when this pen was modeled or made into a complete, what you say, when this pen was made into a complete product, it was instantiated. So that drawing, that diagram became a complete object which you can touch and feel. And what are the properties of an object? The properties of an object are, it has attributes, the different properties which it has. So basically characteristics of an object, not properties of an object. So there are two characteristics of an object. Number one, the different properties it has are called attributes, and number two, the behaviors. Say for example, I am sitting on this chair. So the attributes of this chair are, it has a backrest, it has a sitting place, it has 4 legs, and it has 2 places, like 2 handles at the side. Okay, these are the attributes, these are the properties of the chair. And the function, okay, the chair can be used for sitting, the chair can be used for leaning. These are the 2 functions, and these functions are known as behaviors of that object. So in class, we don't call function as function, but we call them as methods. So in class, everything is every function is a method, and every variable is an attribute. So you can call it variable, but we call it attribute for the namesake. So guys, let's see how the code works. So I have written the definition of each and everything which I over here, and have commented completely like I do it in my previous classes. So it will be easier for you to understand while reading the things. So guys, if you want the notes, you can directly download it from GitHub and you can follow along. So I have defined a class example with passing an object. A class can be defined in 2 ways, by the keyword class and a class name, and colon that is one way. And the second way, and the more robust way, is giving the keyword class, the class name followed by the class name, and then a parenthesis having an object inside it. Just write object. So why we need it, we will be learning it in inheritance class a day after the next video, or the next to next video. I will be talking about inheritance over there. And the other way is this one. So this is the way we define a class, we write a class. So when Python interpreter sees this word keyword class, it identifies as, okay, this is a class and it has some attributes and some methods. Okay, now we're clear? So this class variables I will be talking a bit later. Let's first go into this init function. So init function is the basic function which each and every class has. So what is an init function? Init is the short form of initialization. So all the attributes which a class has are written inside the init function. Like all the variables on which the class operates are written inside the init function, and when we create an instance of a class, at that time only init function is called. So at that time, all the variables, excuse me, I think the sound is too much. So while we instantiate a class, what happens is the init function is called. So the init function, what it does is it instantiates the object. What is an instantiation? Okay, it creates the object. What is creation of an object? It allocates certain parts of the memory, certain spaces of the memory to the object. Like, say for example, this is my memory. This is my memory. So this part it allocates for the object, or the first object which I am creating. Say for example, this I am calling object 1. And again I create an object, this will allocate this much amount of space for object 2. So how much space will it allocate? Okay, now it has some variables. So each and every variable has some predefined values which are generated, which are used for storing those variables inside the memory. So those variables with those spaces are given like a, so the total memory space is calculated and that much amount is given for each and every object, and that is done by none other than the constructor of the class, or called the init function. So I'm clear with the init function, I think now. And also constructor. What is a constructor? A constructor, anytime you create an object, anytime you create an instance of a class, at that time the constructor is called. I have shown each and everything down below, like how to create the instance of a class, creating an object and all. Yeah, I'll come to it. Now let's go to the self. Now it's a very good practice for each and every class or each and every method to pass a self keyword, a self variable. Actually it's a variable. So what is a self variable? Now I may have n number of objects, thousands and thousands of objects. So all the time I call with a new object. Last day I told you each and every function is used for code reusability. Now another thing which I forgot to tell you guys is not only code reusability, but also structuring the code in a proper form is the work of each and every function. Now code reusability, see for example, now this is a far robust example. Last day I told you when we will be progressing in our classes, we will be seeing like what is each and everything, each and every part of the function which I told you, how we can directly visualize it. So in this part we can see this init function may be used. Say for example I create 1,000 objects. I have created 2 objects over here, but I can create n number of objects. So at that time, for each and every object I needed that init each and every object. So what I will do, each and every object I will call this init method, and this self is pointing to, now I have, say for example, 2 objects. So object 1 and object 2. Now if when I call init, it doesn't understand from which function which object I am calling. Is it object 1 or object 2? It get confused. So now think of like 1,000 objects, so it will get confused. So this self keyword points to the object from which you are calling the init method. Understood? Like self is a keyword which points to the current instance, current object. An object is called an instance. So you can directly point to the object from which you are being called. Say for example object 1 is calling, now object 1 is being created, so init is called from that, and object 2 is being created, init is called from that. So that's the power, that's the work of self keyword, a self variable. Okay, each and every method has. So now let's see how to create the instance of a class. So I have named the class like how to call. So let's talk about another method that will be easier for you to understand then. So in this init method you can see, it does only one work, so I can shift it. Okay guys, another thing which I wanted to talk is, in any function in a class is called a method, and init is also a method of the class, having a special feature, that is being a constructor. It is used for constructing an object. So init is a method. Init has some special powers which normal function doesn't have. It is the first function, or it is the by default function. When you create a class, it is being called by default. Okay, so when you create an instance of a class, like if you don't create this init method, it will call the default init method, which will just have the pass in it. So nothing, if you create any object, the init method will be called. Okay, and this is a very good thing. Like in init you can do any kind of coding, any kind of modification which you want for the class. That's why a class is also called an user defined data type, because each and every property of the class can be changed, can be modified, can be monitored by an user, and a user can change it in such a perspective that he or she can use it for their own personal benefits. That's why a class is known as an user defined data type. Now I told you, let's see, this init method has four variables which are defined, that is name, age, marks, and a variable. This variable I will be showing, this I have done because of instance method, class method, and static method, which I will be talking just in a jiffy. So let's print this also. Print this is the variable. So this is the thing. Now I have defined two methods, like init has had to be defined, and I have defined one method, display. Now I need to call this display function to print it, or I need to call a function to execute that function. So how will I do that? Now I have done it over here. So I have instantiated my class. My class name was example. So I have instantiated my class as instance. This is the first object which I am creating, and I have created another object, object 2. And we can call a function using in two ways. Okay. So as you can see, I have created two instances of this class. Now in one, I have named instance is equals to example, and object 2 is equals to example. So these are the two objects, and we can create an object of the class very simply. You just have to write any name, any variable name. I have written over here instance. You can write any name, and is equals to the name of the class with a parenthesis. So it will directly call the init function. I told you the init function needs to be called while creation of the object, so that memory can understand, so that how memory can understand how much memory is actually required for how much memory is actually required for storing or creation of that object. Now it can be any function can be called in two ways. Number one is using the class name, and number two is using the object name, object or instance. Number one, how to do it? So number one is a class name. Class name is example. So we use a dot to identify which function or variable we need to call. So in case of function, we go for the class name dot the function name, and in brackets, since we have passed self, we need to pass an object of the class. So I am passing instance, and in the same manner, I can directly call the function by just writing the object dot the function name. Since object is an instance of a class, each and every attribute and behavior, each and every variables and each and every functions of the class are present with an object. Thus, we can use the object to call the classes, methods, variables, each and everything. So I have called the variables of methods over here and the variables over here. See, using the instance is my object name. Okay. Now let's print this and see. Yeah, so it will show some error because I have commented. So that I will be doing. So see, my name is stg. So let's go to the init variable. So my name was stg, and my age is 20. My marks are 475. This is a variable 10. So this is being called as soon as the display function is called. And since I have called the display function twice, one with the class name and one with the object name, it is printed twice. And then I told you I have called each and every variable of the class. Now this is done. So we can see over here, like each and every variable of the class had been called. Okay. Now let's clear this and move on to the next part. So this mutator methods and accessor methods are type of methods, instance methods, which I will be talking a bit later. And this is that object, passing an object from one class to another class. So this will also I will be talking at the very end. Okay guys, sorry for the weird cut. I was having too much pain and I had to take a rest. Now let's continue with where we left off. Now we are going to talk about instance variables and class or static variables. So there are two kinds of variables while we are dealing with class. As I told you earlier, an object is an instance of a class. An object is a something. An object is not It's like an object is something which we can feel and which has a physical memory location. So if it has a physical memory location, then all the attributes and all the behaviors it has are realized, are physically realized. So it has some variables which are on its own, which are with its own. And since an object is an instance of a class, those variables are known as instance variables. Similarly, some variables are kept with the class. So say for example, those variables need not be changed. And I'll be explaining what I mean by them, are class variables. So some variables are kept only with the class. Those can be very much important in certain perspectives. So let's talk about instance variable. So instance variable, each and every object has a different copy. Say we have two objects over here, but we can have n number of objects. N is limited by your imagination. So if we have n number of objects, the total number of objects we have over here can have different copies of a variable with them. So for that, those variables which are inside that object are known as instance variable. Those are generally written inside the init function, the constructor function, while we are constructing the object. Say for example, you have four variables over here: name, age, marks, and variable. So these are the four instance variables. Now this instance variables are has a copy for each and every object. Okay, this is realized over here. Like I have written class methods, so I will be discussing class and instance methods after this, and this will be having the same property, so I kept it over here. Let's now talk about this. Okay, so if we run this, what will happen? Let's check the code. So yeah, it prints 10 10 10 10 was before it was the instance variable. So let me give you. So instance dot variable, so we can access instance variable by giving the object name dot the variable name. So it will access the instance variable. Now instance variable, we have two objects, so we are accessing two the variable from two objects. It sounds so funny, I can understand, but okay, that's when you read it, that will be much more clear. So or run it, that's the main thing. You have to run a program to understand it better. Now print instance dot variable, it will print the variable which is present with the instance object, and object 2 dot variable, that will print the variable which is present with the object 2. So when we run this, we get 10 10. See, it was firstly initialized with 10, a value of 10. So we are getting 10 10, no issues whatsoever. Now what I have done, I have called this modify method. See, let's see the modify method. So modify method changes. What does it change? It adds some value. It adds some value to the variable. So the modify method changes a part of the variable. Okay. Now on object 2 I am only modifying, and in the first object, the instance object, I am not modifying the variable. So when we ran this, what we saw, the variable for instance remains as constant, and the variable for object remains changed to 15, since 5 was added to 10. So in few cases, what can be seen is that some variables need to be changed with object. Say for example, the amount of money withdrawn for a month for a person in a bank account needs to be changed for every person, but the total amount of money or the account number needs fixed. It stays fixed. So for that we have class variables. So I just talked about class variables at the very beginning. So class variables are variables whose values, class variables are also called static variables. So those are the variables whose values are fixed for the entire class, and those can be accessed with the class name. And also remember this, static or class variables are variables for which we have only one copy for each and every object. Say for example, a few crore objects, still we have only one copy for them. So I have defined a class variable over here. Let's run this. So we have to comment this local variable or instance variable. Since the name is same, that's why we are commenting, else we do not need to comment. So let's cut this part out. Sorry guys, this is Okay, let's paste it. Okay, now let's talk about this class method. Huh? So class objects are accessed by either class methods or are accessed by static methods. So I have defined a static method over here. It can also access the class variable. No issues, because a class variable is also known as static variable. So let's run this again and let's see what are the different things we can observe. So as you can see, it changed the value for both the object. The value of class instance variable was class variable, not instance variable. The class variable value was 24, and we have added 5 in the modify function. The modify function is a bit different. Here in the last modify function we had to pass self, but in this modify function we do not need to pass self, but we need to pass class variable, which is CLS. CLS is a pointer, or say for example CLS is a variable which points to the class or the present object of the class. So basically this is a class object created over here. So it is pointing to the class variable. Thus we can access the class variable. Now class variable, as I told you, or a static variable has a single copy for all the objects. I had 2 objects, but it changed for all the objects. See, both the objects I modified it for only second object, but it got modified for the instance object also. So there are things which we do not need to change for each and every object. At that place we use class variables, and there are variables we need to change for each and every object. At that place we use instance variables. So I think I was able to clear your doubts regarding instance variables and class variables. Let's move to the next point, that is, types of methods. What are the different types of methods we use in a class? So there are generally 3 types of methods. Now number 1 is instance methods, which I have written over here. Then class methods and static methods. So static methods are a bit different than class methods, so I will tell you all about them, so don't worry. So let's start with instance methods. Okay, so instance methods are those which are present with the object, and we do not need to write anything at the beginning of this instance method. So if this method was there in place of the above class method, so we do not need to define a decorator in front of the instance method. As you can see over here, we do not need to define a method decorator in front of the instance method. An instance method works on the instance variables only, because it has to modify the variables for each and every object. That's why it acts on the instance variables. So instance method has 2 types, 2 subtypes of different methods with it. That is, one is moderator, one is mutator. Sorry for that. One is mutator, and the other is accessor. So what mutator does? Mutator sets name, or yeah, it basically sets name. So when you pass a name, when we want to change the value of a variable in an object, what we do, we pass that using the mutator function. That's a very basic and very good example of using a mutator. And when we want to access the value, we use the accessor. Accessor gives us the value, mutator mutates or modifies the value. So this thing you remember, mutator starts with M, modifies the value. Accessor starts with A, accesses the value or gets the value. Okay, we are clear on that. So what I have done over here, so I have written instance method. In instance method I have used the set name. Set name is my mutator now. So it is changing the name, which was this STG, it will be changed to Subhra the Geek. And instance get name, this would get the name. This is the accessor which accesses the name and gives it back to the user. So let's run this and let's see. Yeah, so the name changed to Subhra the Geek now, which was STG at the very beginning. See? Okay. Now let's move on to static, or let's move on to class, then we'll move on to static. Okay. Oh, why? Okay, class methods, no? So for class method, we write like it's similar. It's completely analogous to class variables. So guys, you can understand that instance variables and instance methods are completely analogous, and class methods and class variables are completely analogous. But static variables and static methods are not analogous. I will show you. I will show you each and every difference why they are not analogous. Sorry for this. So what happens is a class variable, class method can access class variables. So what are class variables? As I told you, class variables are variables which are always, there is a single copy for all the objects. So this is one of the class variable which I define. Let me write it class or static variable. So a class method has a decorator at the rate class method at the at the starting of the function, and this can modify the class variables or static variables. Basically, while we want to modify any class variable, we need a class method, and static variables can also be modified, but static methods are something different which we will be discussing now. So class methods is completely analogous, and it will do the same working which we did for class variable or static variable. So we will run it again and let's see. Yeah, it changes the value of 24 to 29 for each and every object. So that's completely analogous. Let's now move to static methods. Okay, I have commented for a reason, that I don't want to bore you guys. So let us do one thing. Let's comment this part out for now. Okay. So static method. See, I have printed both the objects variables. Now static methods are not accessed by class name, and it does not have any it does not accept any object inside it. It accesses the variables with the class name. It accesses the class variables with the class name, and it has a decorator called static method at the beginning of it. So let us write this. If not specified otherwise, any method in a class is known as an instance method. So if it is mentioned or with a decorator, this is called a decorator at the very beginning with an @ sign, and then we write either static method or class method. If we write that, then only it becomes a class or static method, else it is considered as instance method. All the methods generally are instance methods of a class. So here we have this example where we are modifying the class variable, and see in instance method and class method we accepted, in class method we accepted class as its object, and in instance method we accepted the object as its parenthesis, but we do not accept anything as its parenthesis in static method. It can directly modify the class variable with the class name dot the variable name, so because it is a static or class method, and a static method can only modify static variables or class variables and nothing more. And a static method does not need an instance of the class to be called. Another thing, static methods are fixed. Like static methods has the same concept as class variables. Like it is fixed for all the different objects which can be created from the class. Say for example, we create thousands of objects, but we have only one static method. We call that static method through thousands of objects. It will directly refer to the single static method. But in case of instance method, it will refer to the different instances of that method to each and every object. So let's modify this. This will also modify that 24 to 29. Yeah, it's completely analogous to class method, but it's a different type. That's basically the difference is that. Now the final two parts, that is passing the member of one class to another. So I have defined another class over here. Let's use the instance method because it's more robust. And let's change this here. So guys, you can change this stuff and you can directly run it while following my code. The code is given in the GitHub page below. So please download it and then run it with me so that you can understand the complete working of the code. And if you have any problem, any queries, please directly comment. I would love to reply to your comments, read your comments, and if you want some personal help, you can directly follow me on my social media handles, which are also linked below. So you can follow me over there where we can directly talk about what are the different things and if you face any problem in that. So no issues whatsoever. So passing members of one class to another. Now you can see I have defined a new class over here which has a static method. Now this static method, why have I defined static method? So that I don't change this variable to each and every iteration or for each and every object. Now what I can do, I can pass one of the object of the class example. This is the class example which we have. One of the object of this class to this my class, this another class called my class, and it will modify the age of that age variable of that object, and we can print that and we can see that okay, this is the thing. And what I have done, I have also called the display function of this class, example class, so that it will display the what are the change that has been done directly. So let's see this. So first let me do this object 2 dot display. So let's see what are the values in object 2, and then we can, okay, this one is giving an error because I haven't commented the static method. So let me do that, and I'll then start over here. So this is the multi-line commenting which we talked about at the very beginning of the class. Okay, so this is done. Let's save it. Okay. So as you can see, the variables in the first case were my name is STG, my age is 20 and 475 and 15. Then when I call this method, when I pass this object 2 from of example class to my class, that changed the value from 20 to 54 and it printed it out. See? So that's the thing. This is a very advanced concept. That's why I am not giving much emphasis on this. You do not need to learn this right now. When you will need this while we are coding some apps and all, which I will be doing pretty soon. So when I will be coding those apps and all over here, or games and all, at that time I will be explaining properly how and why this is needed and why this is utilized. So the last thing was nested class, which I told I will be discussing. So nested class is nothing, defining class inside a class. You can have class inside one class, then you can have n number of classes inside one class, or you can have one class inside one class inside one class inside one class inside one class, as far as your imagination goes. But remind you, it's like the function, nested function. What happens is it gives a lot of pressure on your RAM and it may crash your system. So do it, like if you want to do like 4 to 5 inside inner classes, then do it at your risk. It will clash your system if it's not proper system. And if you have very higher configuration system, then it will work. So I have defined one example 2 class over here. which from the init function only I am calling the inner classes inner class. Okay, so this is creating the object of the inner class in the variable called inner. So inner display is a function over here. It has a message. That message is calling inner class function from the outer class. That's what I'm doing. So understand this. We can define one class inside another class. We can define n number of classes inside another class. We can also define n classes inside one class, like one class, then another class inside one class, then another class inside one class, another class. So we can define that. So that's a concept. This is hardly being used. This is like you design a car and you want an engine. So a engine cannot function without a car, but a car cannot function without engine. Both are analogous. So engine should be inside the car and car should not be inside the engine. It's like that kind of concept. It's generally used in some higher level applications. This is completely advanced Python. So this is all the things which you needed about class. That's why I mentioned those 2 points. So calling inner class function from the outer class. So that's the message which I have written. So this is the method of the outer class and this is calling the method of the inner class. So how to call this? We create an object of the outer class, and using that object we just call this function where it is calling the inner class method. So that's the thing which you can do. So guys, I think I have been able to clear all the doubts regarding objects and classes and why objects and classes are required. So the next day we'll be starting object oriented programming using Python. So I'll be giving out all the concepts and I'll be showering light on few important concepts which are basically required for each and every step. And that's the thing which I wanted to talk. So guys, if you have any questions, any queries, please do comment. Please follow me at my social media handles where I'll be loving to read out those comments and giving you answers. And please practice this. This was the day 4 of our Python 7-day tutorial series. So we have 3 days left, and in 3 days I'll be discussing object-oriented programming in 1 day, abstraction and encapsulation in 1 day, and polymorphism and inheritance, the basics of those. If you know all these things, then I tell you, my friend, you can code anything in Python. And then after the 7 classes, I will do 1 or 2 classes on doing some programming in Python, like this program, that program. Those are very basics and all. So after we are done with that, we'll be moving to some good concepts on Python, and then data analysis, data science and all. For that, please download the Anaconda installation of Python. And let me switch over here. So guys, I think I have been able to clear your doubts over there. Now please download Anaconda installation of Python with the support of Jupyter Notebook, so that we can move into data science and data analytics pretty soon. In VS Code also, if you load one extension, I will share you the extension the next day. It will give you support of the Jupyter Notebook over there, or provided you have the Anaconda distribution of Python. And then again, if you have any queries, please do comment. And if you are learning it with me, like in 7 days, on day 4, how much you have learned, please answer it, like how much you learned, and if you need any extra things and all. That is one thing which I wanted to talk. And the next which I wanted to talk is, guys, I am putting a lot of effort in place where I have a physical problem. Please do support me in the same. Please share it with your friends, to those who needs it the most. And then again, please sorry for that. Please subscribe to my channel. Please share it with your friends. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe to it. Please hit the bell notification icon so that you get notified each and every time I post a new video. I'll be posting some very good videos in near future, which are not there on YouTube, not proper, like it is not properly there on YouTube, and I don't find any good tutorials about them on anywhere. So that's the main thing which I'll be posting in a few days after the basic Python knowledge is cleared for you. And then what we can do, we can directly move on. We will be moving on to all the machine learning and good stuffs now. After the 7 days, we have only 3 days left, like next week and all. We'll be moving to some good concepts in machine learning and all. So guys, please install the Jupyter notebook from Anaconda's distribution. And again, if you have any queries, I am telling you again and again, please do comment, please do share it on my social media handles. The link are given below. And the day-to-day daily notebooks are listed in the GitHub. Please download them, please run them, please ask me while running them if you have any problem, you are facing any problem. I'll be happy to clear those doubts. So that was all for today. Let's meet on the next tutorial session, that will be on Friday. So for now, bye bye. It was your host Subhra signing off.